My beloved child, before you listen to another word, I want you to know this. You are not here by accident. You did not stumble across this message because of chance, luck, or an unexpected recommendation. Long before you pressed play, I already knew this moment would come. Before we continue, if you believe God may have led you here today, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Together, we can share His message with more hearts that need hope. I knew the questions you have been carrying. I knew the weight resting on your heart. I knew there would come a day when your soul would grow weary enough to stop searching for answers in the world and quietly look toward me again. Perhaps you have been wondering whether anyone truly sees what you have been carrying. You smile when people ask if you're doing well, yet deep inside you feel exhausted. You keep going because you believe you have to, but there are nights when you lie awake, staring into the darkness, asking questions you have never spoken aloud to anyone else. Maybe your prayers have become quieter than they used to be. Once, you prayed with confidence, believing every word would quickly be answered. Now, you still pray, but with a heart that has grown tired from waiting. You have whispered the same request over and over, wondering if heaven has heard you at all. There are moments when you ask yourself, Lord, are you still listening? Have you forgotten me? My beloved child, I have heard every prayer you have ever spoken, even the ones that never made it past your lips. I have heard the silent cries hidden behind your smile. I have seen every tear you wiped away before anyone else could notice. Not one sigh has escaped my attention. Not one moment of your loneliness has been invisible to me. Before we continue, my beloved child, I want to ask you something. How is your heart today? And how is your health? If you're listening from a hospital room, recovering at home, caring for someone you love, or simply feeling tired in body or spirit, let us know in the comments. This is a place where people pray for one another, and I know your story may encourage someone who needs hope today. I know there have been days when you felt left behind, while everyone else seemed to move forward. You watched doors open for others while your own remained closed. You celebrated the blessings of those around you, yet quietly wondered why your own season had not arrived. You questioned whether you had done something wrong. You questioned whether your faith was too weak. Sometimes, you even questioned whether I was still walking beside you. If you're carrying a burden today, share your prayer request in the comments below. This community believes in praying for one another, and someone may be encouraged by your story today. But listen carefully, my beloved child. My silence has never meant my absence. The sun does not disappear simply because clouds hide it from your eyes. A loving father does not stop caring for his child simply because he sits quietly beside the bed through the night. In the same way, there have been countless moments when you could not feel my presence, yet I was closer than your very breath. Think about a child learning to walk. There are moments when a father loosens his grip just enough for the child to take a step alone. To the child, it may feel frightening. It may seem as though the father has stepped away, but in reality, the father's hands remain close, ready to catch the child before they fall. What feels like distance is often preparation for growth. Many of you listening today know exactly what that feels like. Perhaps you have been praying for healing, but the pain still lingers. Perhaps you have been asking for restoration in your family, yet relationships remain broken. Maybe you have been searching for work, waiting for direction, or hoping for peace after months or even years of anxiety. Every passing day has tempted you to believe that nothing is changing. But my beloved child, do not measure my faithfulness by what you can see today. Some of my greatest works begin long before human eyes can recognize them. A seed buried beneath the soil appears lifeless, yet beneath the surface, roots are quietly growing. No one applauds the hidden work of those roots, but without them, there could never be a season of fruit. In the same way, I have been working within places you cannot yet see. While you believed nothing was happening, I was strengthening your faith. While you thought you were simply waiting, I was preparing your heart. While you wondered why certain doors remained closed, I was protecting you from paths that could never have led to the peace I desire for you. Remember Hagar in the wilderness. She believed everything was over. Her strength was gone, her hope had faded, and she could no longer see a future for herself or her son. Yet the well that would save her had already been there. It did not suddenly appear because she cried out. I simply opened her eyes to what had been prepared all along. My beloved child, many times your situation is more like Hagar's than you realize. The answer you long for is not always absent. Sometimes pain, fear, and disappointment simply make it impossible to recognize what I am already doing around you. So before we go any further, I want you to lay down one burden. Stop believing the lie that you have been forgotten. Stop measuring my love by the speed of your answers. Stop thinking that silence means I have abandoned you. I have called you by your name. I know your story from beginning to end. I have walked beside you through every storm, every sleepless night, every unanswered question, and every hidden battle. Even when you could not feel my hand, I was still holding yours. Today, I am inviting you to look at your life with new eyes, not through fear, but through faith. Because what you have been calling delay may actually be preparation. What you have been calling rejection may actually be protection. And what feels like silence may be the very place where I am doing my deepest work within your soul. So stay with me a little longer, my beloved child. As we continue this journey together, I will begin to show you why this season has not been meaningless, why your tears have never been wasted, and why the story you thought was falling apart is only now beginning to reveal the beautiful purpose I have been preparing from the very beginning. My beloved child, I know that some of the deepest battles you fight are the ones no one else can see. People may look at your life and think you are doing fine because you continue to smile, continue to work, continue to care for those around you. But I see beyond the surface. I see the quiet moments when your strength begins to fade. I see the questions you carry in your heart but are afraid to ask aloud. Perhaps the hardest part is not the pain itself, it is the waiting. You have waited for answers that never seem to come. You have waited for healing that feels delayed. You have waited for relationships to be restored, for opportunities to appear, for peace to return to your heart. Day after day, you have whispered the same prayers, hoping that today would finally be different. Yet the silence continued. And slowly, almost without realizing it, another question began to grow inside you. Lord, have you forgotten me? My beloved child, I know how easy it is for waiting to become discouragement. At first, you wait with expectation, then you wait with patience. But if enough time passes, patience can quietly turn into disappointment, and disappointment can begin to sound like hopelessness. The enemy loves to whisper that, my silence means I have abandoned you. He wants you to believe that because nothing has changed around you, nothing is happening at all. But that is not the truth. Still, before I show you what I have been doing, I want you to know that I understand why your heart feels this way. Maybe someone you trusted deeply walked away without explanation. You invested your love, your loyalty, and your prayers into a relationship only to be left carrying the pain alone. Betrayal has a way of making you question not only people but even yourself. You replay conversations in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. You begin to build walls around your heart because it feels safer than risking another wound. Perhaps you have also experienced rejection. A door you believed I had opened suddenly closed. An opportunity disappeared. A dream you had carefully nurtured slipped through your fingers. You watched others move ahead while you remained standing in the same place. It seemed as though everyone else's prayers were being answered while yours were still waiting in heaven. That comparison quietly steals your joy. You begin asking questions like, why them and not me? Or what am I missing? Sometimes you even convince yourself that you are somehow less worthy of my love because your journey has been harder. My beloved child, never measure my love by another person's timeline. I also know what it feels like when people misunderstand you. You tried to do the right thing, yet your motives were questioned. You chose kindness, but your kindness was mistaken for weakness. You remained silent to keep peace, but others assumed your silence meant you did not care. Few things are more painful than feeling unseen by the people around you. Then there is loneliness. Not the kind that comes from being physically alone, but the loneliness of feeling that no one truly understands what is happening inside your soul. You can sit in a room full of people and still feel completely isolated. You can laugh during the day and cry quietly at night. You can carry responsibilities for everyone else while secretly wondering who is carrying you. Some of you have become so exhausted that you no longer know how to explain your weariness. It is not simply physical tiredness, it is emotional exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion, the kind that comes from fighting battles for so long that you forget what peace feels like. Every new challenge feels heavier than the last because your heart has been carrying burdens for far too long. There have even been moments when you considered giving up, not because you stopped loving me, but because you wondered whether anything would ever change. You kept praying, yet the answer did not come. You kept believing, yet the breakthrough remained unseen. You kept hoping, yet hope itself began to feel fragile. My beloved child, if that is where you are today, hear me carefully. Feeling weary does not mean your faith has failed. Crying does not mean you are weak. Waiting does not mean I have rejected you. And silence does not mean I have left you. Think about a traveler walking through a valley covered with thick morning fog. From where they stand, they cannot see the road ahead. Every step feels uncertain. They may even wonder whether they have lost the path completely. Yet the road has not disappeared simply because the fog hides it. The destination remains exactly where it has always been. Their vision has become limited, but the path itself has not changed. Many of my children mistake the fog for the end of the journey. You have been looking at your circumstances and assuming they tell the whole story. But circumstances never reveal everything I am doing. What you can see is only one small part of a much greater picture. Remember this simple truth: feelings are real, but they are not always reliable guides. Fear can make protection look like punishment. Disappointment can make preparation look like delay. Loneliness can make my quiet presence feel like absence. Do not allow your emotions to become the final authority over your faith. Instead, let your pain become an invitation to come closer to me, not a reason to walk away. Every honest prayer, every tear, every sleepless night can become a doorway into a deeper relationship with me if you choose to trust rather than surrender to despair. My beloved child, the story is not ending where your pain is. In fact, what you have been calling the darkest chapter may become the very place where my purpose shines the brightest. So stay with me, because in the next part I want to reveal something your heart desperately needs to understand. I will show you that the waiting, the closed doors, the silence, and even the wounds you have carried were never random. There has always been a purpose hidden beneath what you could not yet see, and once you begin to understand it, you will never look at your struggles the same way again. My beloved child, now I want to show you something that can completely change the way you see your life. Until this moment, we have spoken about your pain, your waiting, your unanswered prayers, and the burdens you have been carrying. But if you only look at those things through human eyes, you will always believe they are meaningless. Today, I am inviting you to see them through my eyes. What if the season you have been calling your greatest disappointment is actually becoming your greatest preparation? What if the silence that has frightened you is not the silence of abandonment, but the silence of a loving father carefully preparing something you cannot yet see? Many of my children make one painful mistake. They assume that if they cannot see me working, then I must not be working at all. But my beloved child, some of my greatest miracles begin long before they become visible. Think about a master builder constructing a strong foundation for a home. For weeks, perhaps even months, people passing by see nothing exciting. They see dirt being moved, deep trenches being dug, and concrete disappearing beneath the ground. To an impatient observer, it looks as though no progress is being made, but the builder understands something they do not. The higher the house will stand, the deeper the foundation must become. Your life has been much like that foundation. While you have been asking me to build something beautiful, I have first been strengthening what no one else can see. Character is formed in hidden places. Faith grows when it has nothing visible to hold on to. Trust becomes genuine only when it survives uncertainty. That is why my silence has never meant my absence. When a teacher gives an examination, the classroom often becomes quiet. The silence does not mean the teacher has disappeared. It means the students are being given an opportunity to grow. In much the same way, there have been seasons when I seemed quiet, not because I had left you, but because I was teaching your heart to trust me beyond what your eyes could understand. My beloved child, pain often hides my provision. You have focused on what was taken away, while I have been preparing what is still to come. You have grieved over doors that closed, yet you could not see the dangers hidden behind those very doors. You called them disappointments. I called them protection. Perhaps you prayed for a relationship that did not last. At the time, it felt as though your heart had been shattered. Months or years later, you discovered truths that would have wounded you even more had that relationship continued. What once looked like rejection slowly revealed itself as mercy. Maybe you worked hard for a position you desperately wanted but never received. You questioned why I allowed someone else to be chosen instead of you. Then later, you found yourself on a completely different path, one that brought greater peace, healthier relationships, and opportunities you could never have imagined. Looking back, you realized that the closed door was not my punishment, it was my protection. My beloved child, I have never closed a door without already seeing the road ahead. Sometimes you ask me to remove every storm from your life, but storms are not always your enemy. Sailors do not become skilled by sailing only on calm seas. Trees do not grow strong without winds that force their roots deeper into the earth. Even gold must pass through fire before its beauty is fully revealed. In the same way, every storm has been strengthening something inside you. Every challenge has been teaching you perseverance. Every disappointment has been loosening your grip on temporary things so you can hold more tightly to what is eternal. Peace does not grow because life becomes easy. Peace grows because you begin to trust that I remain faithful, even when life is difficult. That is why some of the strongest believers are not those who have avoided suffering. They are those who have discovered my presence in the middle of suffering. You have often asked why the waiting has been so long. My beloved child, waiting is never wasted. Waiting develops a faith that instant answers never could. If I answered every prayer the moment you asked, you might celebrate the blessing but never deepen your dependence on me. Waiting stretches your faith beyond what is comfortable. It teaches patience, humility, endurance, and surrender. These are treasures that cannot be formed overnight. Think of a farmer planting seeds in the spring. Every day he walks across the field, yet he does not dig the seeds back up to check whether they are growing. He trusts the process because he understands that unseen growth is still real growth. I am asking you to trust me in the same way. Just because you cannot yet see the harvest does not mean the harvest is not coming. There is another truth I want you to remember. My beloved child, before I get promoted, I prepare. Before David wore the crown, he spent years tending sheep in lonely fields. Before Joseph ruled Egypt, he endured betrayal, slavery, and prison. Before Moses led a nation, he spent decades in the wilderness. None of those years were wasted. Every hidden season became preparation for a greater purpose. And your hidden season is no different. You have been measuring your life by visible progress, while I have been measuring it by spiritual growth. The world celebrates quick success, but I delight in transformed hearts. I am far more concerned with who you are becoming than with how quickly you arrive. Even your weakness has a purpose. You have prayed for strength, yet I have sometimes allowed you to feel weak so you would discover where true strength comes from. When your own abilities reached their limits, my power had room to shine. You were never meant to carry every burden alone. Your weakness has been teaching you to lean on me in ways your confidence never could. So, my beloved child, I want you to stop asking only, why is this happening to me? Instead, begin asking, Lord, what are you preparing within me? That single question can transform the way you see every delay, every disappointment, and every difficult season. Because what feels like pain may actually be preparation. What feels like silence may actually be my quiet work. What feels like a closed door may actually be my loving protection. What feels like fire may actually be my refining hand. And what feels like weakness may become the very place where my power is revealed most clearly. Now let me show you that this has always been my way. Throughout Scripture, I have worked through ordinary men and women in exactly the same way. Their stories will help you recognize that what you are living today is not the end of your story. It is often where my greatest work begins. My beloved child, perhaps you are still wondering whether these words are truly for you. Perhaps you are thinking, That sounds beautiful, but how do I know this is really how God works? The answer has never changed. Look at the lives of those who walked with me before you. Their stories are not simply history. They are living reminders that my ways remain the same yesterday, today, and forever. Let me take you through their journeys, because somewhere in their stories, you will begin to recognize your own. Remember Hagar. She found herself alone in the wilderness with no strength left, no clear future, and no hope. As she watched her son grow weaker, she believed everything was over. But the greatest miracle was not that I suddenly created water in the desert. The well had already been there. Hagar simply could not see it because sorrow had blinded her eyes. When I opened her eyes, she discovered that my provision had been waiting all along. My beloved child, pain has a way of narrowing your vision. When your heart is overwhelmed, you begin to believe there are no answers, no opportunities, and no future. Yet many times, I have already prepared what you need. You simply cannot see it until the right moment. Then remember the night my disciples crossed the Sea of Galilee. The winds grew fierce, the waves crashed against the boat, and fear took control of every heart. They believed they were moments away from death, while I rested peacefully in the boat beside them. When I spoke, the wind obeyed, and the sea became still. The greatest miracle that night was not only the calming of the storm, it was the lesson that my peace is stronger than panic. Storms may surround you, but they do not have to rule your heart. When my presence fills your life, peace becomes possible even before circumstances change. Think also of King Jehoshaphat. Surrounded by enemies far stronger than his army, he knew victory could never come through human strength alone. Instead of placing his confidence in weapons, he called the people to seek me. They worshipped before they fought, and before a single sword was lifted, I had already begun defeating their enemies. How often do you exhaust yourself trying to fight battles I never asked you to carry? There are burdens that belong in my hands, not yours. Faith does not mean fighting harder. Sometimes faith means standing still long enough to watch me work. Look at Daniel. Thrown into the lion's den because of his faithfulness, everything around him spoke of danger. Yet the lions could not destroy the one whom I was protecting. I did not always remove my children from difficult places, but I remained with them inside those places. Daniel discovered that peace is not found in perfect circumstances. Peace is found in trusting the one who holds every circumstance. David teaches another lesson. He had every opportunity to take revenge against Saul, the man who hunted him relentlessly. Human wisdom would have called revenge justice, but David chose mercy instead. He trusted me to defend him rather than defending himself. Because he surrendered his anger to me, I lifted him up in my perfect time. My beloved child, never allow bitterness to become the price of your healing. Then consider Joseph. Rejected by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and forgotten in prison, Joseph could have believed his life was ruined forever. Yet every painful chapter became another step toward the purpose I had already prepared. The betrayal that looked like the end became the road that led him to save countless lives. Sometimes the very people who hurt you unknowingly push you toward the destiny I have planned for you. Think about Jonah. From a human perspective, the belly of a great fish looked like punishment, but what seemed like a prison became protection. Had Jonah remained in the raging sea, he would have perished. What appeared to be confinement was actually my rescue. There will be seasons when my protection feels restrictive. Trust me anyway. Remember Naomi. She lost her husband, she lost her sons. She believed her story could only end in bitterness. Yet through those painful losses came Ruth, Boaz, and eventually a family line that would lead to the birth of the Messiah. Naomi could not see restoration while she was grieving, but I was already writing the next chapter. Loss is never the final sentence when I am the author of your story. Do not forget the woman at the well. She came carrying shame, avoiding people, convinced her past would always define her future. Yet after encountering me, the woman who hid from her community became the very one who brought that community to me. The broken became the messenger. My beloved child, your greatest testimony may grow from the place you once tried hardest to hide. Look at Gideon. He saw himself as weak, insignificant, and unqualified. But I called him a mighty warrior long before he believed those words himself. I never define you by your fears. I define you by the person I created you to become. Elijah reminds you that I do not always speak through dramatic miracles. After wind, earthquake, and fire came a gentle whisper. My voice is often heard most clearly when your heart becomes still enough to listen. Hosea reveals my unwavering love. Even when others would have walked away, I continued pursuing those who wandered. My love is not based on your perfection. It is rooted in my faithfulness. Stephen showed forgiveness in the middle of unimaginable suffering. Even while stones were falling around him, his heart remained filled with grace rather than hatred. Forgiveness does not erase pain, but it keeps pain from ruling your soul. Abigail responded to anger with wisdom and gentleness. Her calm spirit prevented destruction where rage would have produced only greater loss. Never underestimate the quiet strength of a peaceful heart. And finally, remember Peter. He stumbled. He denied me. He failed in ways he never imagined possible. Yet I did not reject him because of his weakness. I restored him, strengthened him, and entrusted him with caring for my people. The testing of Peter's faith did not destroy him, it prepared him for the calling that lay ahead. My beloved child, do you see the pattern? Hagar found provision after despair. Joseph found purpose after betrayal. Daniel found peace inside danger. David found honor through patience. Jonah found protection inside confinement. Naomi found restoration after loss. The woman at the well found purpose after shame. Gideon found courage in weakness. Elijah found my voice in silence. Peter found strength through failure. None of their stories were easy. None of them understood my plan while they were living through it. Yet every one of them discovered the same truth. What appeared to be the end was often the place where my greatest work was only beginning. The same is true for you. The story I wrote through them is the same story I am still writing today. Your circumstances may look different, but my character has never changed. I am still preparing before promoting. I am still protected through closed doors. I am still speaking in quiet places. I am still bringing purpose out of pain. And now that you have seen my faithfulness throughout Scripture, let us bring these timeless truths into your own life today. Because these stories were never meant to remain on the pages of the Bible, they were meant to help you recognize what I am doing in your story right now. My beloved child, perhaps you have listened to these stories and thought, those were remarkable people. They lived in Bible times. But my life is ordinary. Let me remind you of something beautiful. The people in Scripture were ordinary before I worked through them. They experienced fear, disappointment, rejection, loneliness, uncertainty, and failure just as you do. Their circumstances may have looked different from yours, but the condition of the human heart has never changed. And because my character never changes, the way I work in your life today is often the very same way I worked in theirs. So let me speak directly into your situation. Perhaps you recently lost your job. You worked faithfully, you gave your best. Then, without warning, everything changed. Now you wonder how you will provide for your family. You question your worth because a position that once gave you purpose is suddenly gone. My beloved child, remember Joseph. When he was sold into slavery, it looked as though his future had been stolen. Every dream seemed impossible, yet the place that appeared to be the end became the place where I quietly prepared him for something far greater than he could imagine. Your current situation does not define your future. I have never depended on one employer, one opportunity, or one closed door to fulfill my purpose for your life. Perhaps someone betrayed you. Maybe it was a friend you trusted for years. Perhaps it was a family member, a business partner, or someone you believed would always stand beside you. Their actions left wounds that words cannot easily describe. My beloved child, I understand that pain. Joseph understood it too. David understood it. Even Peter knew what it felt like to fail and to be broken. Betrayal often feels like destruction, but many times it becomes separation from people who could never have gone where I am leading you. What hurts today may become the very reason you discover greater wisdom, stronger faith, and healthier relationships tomorrow. Maybe you feel misunderstood. No matter how carefully you explain yourself, people continue to judge your motives. They only see a small part of your story, while I see every chapter. Remember David. Others misunderstood his heart, but I never did. You do not need to spend your life convincing everyone to understand you. Live faithfully before me, and let me take care of your reputation. Perhaps you have been praying for months, or even years. You have prayed for healing. You have prayed for your marriage. You have prayed for your children. You have prayed for peace. Yet every morning seems to look exactly like the day before. My beloved child, Hagar also believed heaven had become silent. Yet the answer had already been prepared before she ever saw it. Do not confuse unseen work with absent work. There are blessings already moving toward you that you cannot yet recognize. Some of you carry another kind of pain. Your children have grown distant. Perhaps they no longer call as often. Perhaps they have walked away from their faith. Perhaps family gatherings have become uncomfortable because relationships have become strained. Every parent knows there are few burdens heavier than watching someone you love make painful choices. My beloved child, never stop praying. Love has a way of reaching places that arguments never can. Even when you cannot see immediate change, your faithful prayers are never wasted. Continue planting seeds of kindness, patience, and grace. I often work in hearts long before visible change appears. Maybe your greatest struggle is loneliness. Not because no one is around you, but because you feel unseen. You wonder whether anyone truly understands what it feels like to carry your burdens every day. Remember Elijah. After one of the greatest victories of his life, he found himself sitting alone, exhausted, believing he was the only one left. But he was not alone. Neither are you. There are moments when loneliness whispers lies that sound convincing. It tells you no one cares. It tells you your story no longer matters. But my presence has never depended upon the number of people standing beside you. Perhaps you feel completely lost. You do not know what comes next. The future seems uncertain. You compare yourself to others who appear confident while you struggle to take even one step forward. My beloved child, have you ever noticed how a seed looks when it is first planted? It disappears beneath the soil. To someone watching from above, nothing seems to happen for days or even weeks. But beneath the surface, life has already begun. Roots are quietly growing where no human eye can see. Many people celebrate fruit, yet few appreciate the hidden work that makes fruit possible. You may feel buried today, but being buried is not always the same as being forgotten. Sometimes I plant before I raise. Think about a great tree. People admire its height, its beauty, and the shade it provides. Yet everything visible depends upon roots no one ever applauds. The deeper the roots grow, the stronger the tree becomes when storms arrive. My beloved child, the storms in your life have not come simply to test you. They have also been strengthening your roots. A tree with shallow roots fears every wind. A deeply rooted tree can remain standing because it has learned where its strength truly comes from. The same is true for your faith. Fire provides another lesson. No one enjoys walking through fire. Yet gold becomes more valuable because the fire removes what never truly belonged. In the same way, difficult seasons often burn away pride, fear, unhealthy dependence, and misplaced priorities. What remains afterward is a faith that is stronger, purer, and more completely anchored in me. Have you ever watched a river? It never argues with the rocks standing in its way. It continues flowing. Sometimes it moves around them. Sometimes it slowly shapes them. But it never stops moving toward its destination. My living water works in much the same way. Do not allow obstacles to convince you that my purpose has stopped flowing through your life. And think of the potter shaping clay. The clay cannot always understand why it is being pressed, turned, or reshaped. Yet every touch has purpose. Every adjustment prepares it for the design the potter already sees. That is exactly what I am doing with your life. Even when my hands feel firm, they are always guided by love. Finally, remember a lighthouse standing upon solid rock. Storms crash against it. Waves rise around it. Darkness surrounds it. Yet it continues shining because its foundation never changes. My beloved child, I want your life to become like that lighthouse. Not because storms will disappear, but because your foundation will become so deeply rooted in me that no storm can take away the peace I have placed within your heart. So if today you have lost your job, been betrayed, misunderstood, left waiting, separated from loved ones, burdened by loneliness, uncertain about tomorrow, or fearful of what lies ahead, remember this: I am still leading you as I led Joseph. I am still providing as I did for Hagar. I am still defending as I did for David. I am still giving peace as I gave Daniel. I am still restoring as I restored Peter. The same hands that guided them are guiding you. And now, my beloved child, let me speak even more personally to your heart. For everything we have discussed until now has been preparing you for one truth you need to hear above all else. Not merely what I have done for others, but what I am saying to you, right here, right now. My beloved child, you have listened with your mind until this moment, but now I want you to listen with your heart. Set aside your fears for just a little while. Stop trying to figure everything out. Simply be still and hear my voice. I know the tears you never let anyone see. I know the nights when sleep would not come because your mind was filled with questions. I know the conversations you replay over and over, wondering whether you could have changed the outcome. I know the moments when you smiled in front of others while your heart quietly broke inside. Nothing about your pain has ever been hidden from me. I see the burden you carry every morning before anyone else notices. I see the responsibilities that have made you feel exhausted. I see the disappointment you hide because you do not want to become a burden to those you love. I see how hard you have tried to remain faithful, even when you felt empty inside. Others may only see your actions. I see your heart. I understand. I understand what it feels like when waiting becomes heavy. I understand how silence can make you question everything you once believed. I understand why fear sometimes whispers louder than faith. I understand because I have walked beside you through every step, even during the moments when you believed you were walking alone. My beloved child, there has never been a single day when I stopped watching over you. Not one. I never left you. Even when the door closed, I was there. Even when the phone never rang, I was there. Even when the doctor's report frightened you, I was there. Even when someone you trusted walked away, I was there. Even when you cried yourself to sleep, I was there. Even when you believed no one cared anymore, I was still there. You measured my presence by your circumstances, but my presence has never depended on your circumstances. I am with you in the valley just as surely as I am with you on the mountain. I am still holding your hand. There were days when you thought you had to carry everything by yourself. You worried about tomorrow. You worried about your family. You worried about your finances. You worried about your health. You worried about whether you would have enough strength for another day. Yet all along, my hand never loosened its grip. Imagine a young child walking through a crowded street while holding a loving father's hand. The child may become frightened by the noise, the unfamiliar faces, and the uncertainty of the path ahead. But the child remains safe, not because he understands where he is going, but because his father refuses to let go. My beloved child, your safety has never depended upon your ability to understand every step. It has always depended upon my faithfulness. My peace is with you. Not the kind of peace the world offers, a peace that depends upon perfect circumstances. My peace remains when the future is uncertain. My peace remains when prayers have not yet been answered. My peace remains when storms continue around you. Because true peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the certainty that I am greater than every trouble you will ever face. Some of you have quietly wondered whether your prayers have disappeared into silence. Hear me clearly. Not one prayer has ever been forgotten. Every whispered prayer, every desperate cry, every tear that became a prayer when words could no longer be spoken, every request you offered with trembling faith, I heard them all. Sometimes I answered by saying yes. Sometimes I answered by saying wait. Sometimes I answered by closing a door you desperately wanted to walk through. But every answer has always been guided by my perfect love. A child may ask for something that seems good in the moment, yet a loving father sees dangers the child cannot imagine. In the same way, there have been blessings I delayed because your heart needed preparation. There have been opportunities I removed because they would have taken you away from my best. There have been seasons I prolonged because the person you were becoming mattered more than the comfort you were seeking. My beloved child, no trial in your life has ever been meaningless. Every disappointment has taught you something. Every delay has strengthened something. Every tear has softened something. Every struggle has refined something. Fire does not destroy pure gold. It removes everything that weakens it. You have often prayed for a stronger faith, yet you hoped it would come without difficulty. But faith grows the way muscles grow, not through comfort, through resistance. You may not enjoy the process, but one day you will thank me for what I was building inside you. And hear this promise: no person can cancel what I have planned for you. No betrayal is stronger than my purpose. No rejection can overturn my calling. No mistake is beyond my redemption. No delay can erase my promises. People may change. Circumstances may change. Your own emotions may change. But my word never changes. What I have spoken over your life will stand. Not because you are perfect, but because I am faithful. So stop believing the lie that your story has already been decided by your failures. Peter failed, yet I restored him. David stumbled, yet I called him a man after my own heart. Joseph was betrayed, yet I raised him higher than anyone imagined. If I was still writing their stories after their darkest moments, why would I stop writing yours? I am protecting you, even when you do not understand the path. I am refining you, even when the fire feels intense. I am healing you, even when the wounds still seem fresh. I am preparing you, even when waiting feels endless. I am with you, not only on your best days, not only when your faith feels strong, not only when your prayers are full of confidence. I am with you on the days when your voice shakes. I am with you on the nights when tears become your only prayer. I am with you when your hope feels small. I am with you when your strength is gone, and I will remain with you until the very end. So lift your eyes, my beloved child. Stop measuring your future by today's circumstances. Begin measuring it by my faithfulness. The same hands that have carried you this far will not suddenly let you fall. The same voice that called you by name is still speaking over your life. The same love that found you in your brokenness is still surrounding you today. Now there is only one question left. How will you respond? Will you continue allowing fear to guide your next step? Or will you choose to trust me even before you see the answer? That choice, my beloved child, is where faith begins, and it is the step I am inviting you to take right now. My beloved child, now that you have heard my heart, the question is no longer whether I am with you. The question is how you will respond. Faith is not simply believing that I exist. Faith is choosing to trust me even when you cannot yet see where I am leading you. Anyone can believe when every prayer is answered immediately. Anyone can rejoice when life is easy. But true faith is revealed in the moments when the road ahead is still uncertain, and yet you choose to keep walking because you know the one who walks beside you. So today, I am asking you for something very simple. Trust me, not because you understand everything. Trust me because I understand what you cannot. Imagine a child holding a puzzle piece in his hand. He cannot understand why it looks so strange or where it belongs, but the parent holding the entire puzzle sees the complete picture. My beloved child, you are holding only one piece of your story. I am holding every piece from beginning to end. Trust the one who sees what you cannot. And while you trust me, learn to wait with hope instead of fear. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. Waiting means continuing to believe while I continue to work. A farmer does not plant a seed in the spring and abandon the field because nothing appears after a few days. He waters it. He protects it. He patiently expects growth because he understands that life is developing beneath the surface. Let your faith become like that faithful farmer. Do not dig up what I have planted simply because you cannot yet see the harvest. Keep praying, not because I have forgotten your first prayer, but because prayer keeps your heart connected to mine. Every time you come to me, you are reminded that you do not carry your burdens alone. Some answers come quickly, others grow quietly through time, but every sincere prayer brings you closer to my heart. Forgive those who have wounded you. I know this is not easy. Forgiveness does not say that what happened was acceptable. It says that you trust me to be the judge while you choose freedom instead of bitterness. Bitterness keeps you chained to yesterday. Forgiveness allows you to walk toward tomorrow. Love even when the world teaches you to become cold. Remain gentle even when others are harsh. The strongest heart is not the one that wins every argument. The strongest heart is the one that refuses to lose its compassion. Remember Abigail, whose gentle wisdom stopped destruction before it began. Remember David, who refused revenge when he had every opportunity to take it. Their strength was not found in anger but in self-control. Remain peaceful. Do not allow every headline, every opinion, or every unexpected problem to steal the peace I have placed within you. The world changes every day. My promises do not. Peace grows when your attention stays on me instead of every storm around you. And my beloved child, stop fighting alone. For too long, you have tried to carry burdens that were never meant to rest on your shoulders. You have worried through sleepless nights. You have searched for answers until your mind became exhausted. You have tried to control what only I can control. Lay those burdens before me. There is a reason I said, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Rest is not weakness. Rest is trust. Do not be afraid of tomorrow. Fear imagines a future without me. Faith remembers that I am already waiting there. Lift up your head. Do not spend another day looking only at what has gone wrong. Lift your eyes toward the hope I have placed before you. Keep walking, even if today's step feels small, even if you cannot yet see the destination. Every step taken in faith brings you closer to the purpose I have prepared for you. My beloved child, this is the response I desire, not perfection, but surrender, not striving, but trust, not fear, but faith. Continue walking with me one day at a time, and you will discover that I have been faithful in every season. Now, before we finish our time together, let us bring everything we have talked about into one final prayer. Open your heart, be still before me, and receive the peace, strength, and blessing I long to pour over your life today. My beloved child, before you leave this moment, I want you to become still. Take a slow, gentle breath. If you are able, close your eyes for just a moment, and let these words settle deep within your heart. You have carried enough burdens today. You do not have to carry them alone any longer. Come into my presence just as you are. You do not need to pretend that you are stronger than you feel. You do not need to hide your fears. You do not need to explain your tears. I already know, and I love you completely. Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious person listening to this message today. You know their name, you know their story. You know the battles they have fought in silence and the burdens they have carried without anyone else noticing. There is not one detail of their life that has escaped your loving eyes. Lord, I ask that your peace would begin to settle over every anxious heart right now. Where there has been fear, let your courage rise. Where there has been confusion, bring clarity. Where there has been loneliness, let your comforting presence be felt. Where there has been discouragement, plant fresh hope. Where there has been weariness, renew their strength. Father, remind them that they have never been abandoned. Even in the seasons when heaven felt silent, you were still working. Even in the seasons when doors closed, you were still protecting. Even in the seasons of waiting, you were still preparing. Even in the storms, you were still strengthening their faith. Lord, help them to stop seeing themselves as forgotten and begin seeing themselves as loved. Help them to stop believing that every delay is rejection. Help them to trust that your timing is always wiser than their own understanding. Father, heal every wounded heart. Some are carrying pain from words spoken years ago. Some are grieving people they deeply love. Some have been betrayed by those they trusted. Some feel overwhelmed by responsibilities they never expected to carry. Some are quietly wondering whether they still have purpose. Wrap every one of them in your unfailing love. Remind them that every wound placed into your hands can become a testimony of your faithfulness. Lord, I pray for those who are waiting for healing, waiting for restoration, waiting for direction, waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for a child to come home, waiting for peace to return. Give them the patience to trust what they cannot yet see. Teach them to remember that a seed grows beneath the soil long before it appears above the ground. Strengthen their hearts while they wait, and let them never mistake waiting for abandonment. Father, protect them from fear. When anxious thoughts come, remind them that you are already walking ahead of them. When doubt whispers that nothing will ever change, remind them that you are still the God who opens seas, calms storms, restores broken lives, and makes all things new. Let them rest in the certainty that nothing is impossible for you. Lord, fill every home represented here with your presence. Bless every marriage. Bless every family. Comfort every widow. Strengthen every caregiver. Encourage every parent praying for a son or daughter. Be close to every person who feels forgotten or alone tonight. May they sense your loving hand holding theirs even now. And Father, when this prayer comes to an end, do not let this message end in their hearts. Let it continue tomorrow morning. Let it continue in the difficult conversations. Let it continue in hospital rooms. Let it continue in quiet living rooms. Let it continue in lonely moments. Let it continue wherever they go. May they remember this one unchanging truth. Their pain was never meaningless. Every wound has a purpose. Every storm is building stronger faith. Every season of waiting is preparing them for what you have already planned. And one day, they will look back and realize that the very places where they once felt weakest became the places where your strength shined the brightest. My beloved child, I want you to remember something before we part today. You are not leaving this moment as a victim of your circumstances. You are leaving as someone I am preparing. The waiting has not been wasted. The tears have not been forgotten. The closed doors have not been random. The silence has not been empty. I have been shaping your heart, strengthening your faith, and preparing you for a purpose greater than you can see today. One day, someone will find hope because of your story. Someone will discover courage because you chose to keep trusting. Someone will believe again because they see my faithfulness reflected through your life. That is how light spreads. One faithful heart becomes a light for another, and then another, until darkness begins to lose its power. So go forward with confidence, my beloved child. Continue trusting me. Stay faithful in the small things. Walk in my peace, even when the road is uncertain. Lift your eyes toward hope instead of fear. And never forget that I am walking beside you every step of the way. If this message has spoken to your heart today, let your response be simple. Write Amen in the comments as your prayer of faith. If there is something weighing heavily on your heart, share your prayer request below so this community can stand with you in prayer. And if you know someone who needs hope today, share this message with them, because a single word of encouragement can become the answer to someone else's prayer. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you and give you peace. May His unfailing love surround you today, tomorrow, and always. Amen.